The action RPG Torchlight was recently released to the world and has caused a trip down memory lane for many a geek. But is this dungeon crawler worth its weight in crystallized rock? Stay a while and listen. Runic Games, the makers of Torchlight, is a studio with an interesting past. You see, Runic Games was founded by 3 gentlemen, 2 of which were the original founders of Blizzard North, makers of the Diablo series. In addition, Runic Games houses most of the former flagship studio's Seattle team, the same team that worked on the never-released action RPG Mythos. In light of all this, it should come as no surprise that Torchlight borrows so heavily from the Diablo franchise, it might as well be part of it. As you start up the game, players have a choice between 3 different character types: the Destroyer, the Vanquisher, or the Alchemist. The Destroyer is the basic tank class, similar to the Barbarian in Diablo, having many of the same skills. The Vanquisher doubles as a ranger and an assassin, using bows, guns, and crossbows for long-range combat. Last but not least is the Alchemist, very similar to the Necromancer in Diablo 2. The Alchemist is primarily a range fighter using a variety of spells, while being able to raise minions from the corpses of his fallen enemies. Torchlight is structured similarly to the original Diablo: 1 town and 1 dungeon. The dungeon has a huge number of levels or floors. Around every 10th level, there's a new type of environment to explore. In the town of Torchlight itself, you can pick up a variety of quests, all guiding you deeper and deeper into the mountain. There's only one main quest, which is the only part of the game with voice acting.
Bring! Over here! I can't hold them back much longer!
Dungeons are randomized using tile sets, so whenever you start a new game, you'll have a slightly different experience. In addition to this, the randomization of dungeons seems to take into account the difficulty level you're playing on. The easier the difficulty, the shorter the dungeon. Other things affected by the difficulty setting are the amounts and quality of loot, the health of the monsters, and the amount of experience you earn after each kill. Naturally, as you make your way deeper and deeper into the mountain, the difficulty of the monsters escalates. Most monster encounters are superficial and you'll mow right through them, but some will have different spells and abilities. Most of the time, the strategy for slaying tougher foes is the same. Use your most powerful attack until you're the last man standing. It's still as fun as it was 9 years ago in Diablo 2, but a bit of variety would have been nice. It is, after all, 9 years later. Motivating you through all this is the leveling system and the loot. As you gain levels, you'll get points to put into a skill tree, an increase in health and mana, and 5 points to distribute among 4 attributes: strength, dexterity, magic, and defense. And though it's a good idea to focus your points depending on which class you've picked, every class can specialize in different playstyles with relative success. Then there's the loot. Almost every monster you kill will drop a moderate amount of gold, which you can then use to purchase new weapons and armor, or perhaps add a new enhancement to an existing piece. Fairly often you'll see weapons and armor drop, most of which are junk. Boss drops and expensive vendor items are the way to go for equipping yourself, but you should pick up everything anyway. When your pack is full, you can always send your dog off to the vendor, and after a short while he'll come back with a bucket of gold. This eliminates your need to constantly throw up town portals or neglect loot.
Your pet has departed.
In your travels, you can pick up Scrolls of Identify and Scrolls of Town Portal. And if that doesn't fill your heart with Diablo warm and fuzzies, then get ready to wrap your arms around the merchant in town that only sells unidentified items. On the technical side, the game isn't very impressive, but the cel-shaded cartoony art style does a good job of covering that up. The particle effects are flowing and nice looking, but compared to more recent games, they do leave something to be desired. The sound effects are nothing to write home about, but they're passable. Musically, the game sounds exactly like Diablo, most likely because they actually use the same composer. We found the music to be a little repetitive, but thankfully you can turn down the in-game volume. In essence, Torchlight is exactly like Diablo, so that should mean that in essence, Torchlight is a great game. And for the $20 you pay for it, it's certainly worth it. But it's been 9 years since Diablo 2, and what was okay then isn't okay now. We feel like the developers did themselves a slight disservice by modeling the game a little too closely to Diablo. While they could have improved on the variety of gameplay and objectives, they simply turned to Diablo for a roadmap. Still, this PC game is highly addictive and easy to pick up and play. Worth buying.